You've seen it on t-shirts, on mugs, waving outside homes and businesses. Maybe you even have it on a hat. That flag with a pine tree and a blue star, it seems to be everywhere lately. Mainers will decide on November's ballot if this flag design, well, a version of it, should be Maine's official state flag. Again. So what's the history of Maine's state flag, and why are Mainers voting on a new one? That's what we're diving into today. I'm Esta Pratt-Kielley. This is Maine Explained. In 1901, Maine adopted its first official state flag. It had a pine tree and a blue star with a plain buff background, a lot like the one you see everywhere now. It was designed by the state adjutant general at the time, John Richards.
This is a photograph of the original design. And it was important that the pine tree be proper, meaning it looks like a real white pine tree, which is our state tree.
David Martucci is a vexillologist, meaning he studies flags. He says while lots of states were adopting blue flags with their coat of arms, Richards thought Maine's flag should have a more recognizable design. While it's a simple design, Martucci says it has a lot of symbolism.
It goes back to some of the Native American traditions. The tree represents the people, and the three roots represent the basis of support for the people, the three different branches of government. And then the two cutoff branches represent the two territories that Maine has lost over the years. And of course, the North Star represents our leading star, and it represents our motto, Derigo, meaning I lead. Buff represents tanned deer hide, and it represents standing stiff or firm for American independence.
And the design became popular almost immediately.
People liked it. It was unlike any other flag in the Union. It was pretty identifiable. I mean, if you march down the street with this flag, you know, people are going to look at it and say, there goes somebody from the Pine Tree State.
But 8 years later, the legislature replaced it with Maine's current flag, the state coat of arms on a blue background. Back then, most Union flags were blue, distinguishing them from red Confederate flags. Martucci says at the time, many state legislators were Civil War veterans and wanted a flag that represented those battles. So in 1909, the official state flag became the blue flag, the one you see flying atop the State House today. Then, no one really thought much about it for more than 100 years, until a small company in Portland began producing a version of Maine's original flag in 2018.
We had to find a tree because the original 1901 law didn't specify an exact tree. It just says a green tree and a blue star.
Maine Flag Company actually set out to produce Maine's other official state flag, the Merchant and Marine flag. Fun fact, Maine and Massachusetts are the only two states in the country that have a separate official marine flag. But the marine flag was much more complicated to hand sew, so they used the tree on that flag to recreate the original 1901 pine tree flag, and their design took off.
Whether they were like motorcycling across the country and they wanted to put a little flag on the back of their motorcycle or their RV, or if they wanted to put something on their boat, or if they wanted to give a gift, it just kind of seemed to kind of take on a life of its own.
It became really popular. Maine Flag Company grew and continues to grow, and other businesses began to sell merchandise with their own versions of the pine tree flag. Now, many Mainers and tourists recognize the flag as a symbol of the state.
I think the people of Maine have already voted. You can tell by how many flags are flying.
So with its popularity came legislation. Martucci tried to get the 1901 flag reinstated twice in the 1990s, but it never gained traction. But in 2023, lawmakers voted to ask Mainers which flag they prefer in a statewide referendum.
I don't think this legislation would have passed but for the reemergence of this classic symbol on merchandise produced by companies in Skowhegan and Portland. Even L.L. Bean had a version of the 1901 state flag on bean boots last summer.
So in November of 2024, Mainers will vote and ultimately decide what the official state flag should be.
Question 5 is very simple. If you want to adopt the pine tree flag, which was the original 1901 flag in its modern version, you vote yes. If you want to keep the classic Maine flag with a blue background and a seal, you don't want to adopt a new flag, you vote no.
Secretary of State Shenna Bellows was tasked with selecting an official design of the pine tree flag. So she opened up a contest. There were more than 400 submissions. Some included lobsters and moose, even Chuck Norris. Bellows and a team ultimately selected a design by Adam Lemire of Gardner. He designed the pine tree with 16 branches to represent Maine's 16 counties. He says he was inspired by nature walks with his son near the State House.
It's mostly based on a tree in Governor's Grove, also in Viles Arboretum.
And while this will be the official design, Bellows says if voters approve the law, future secretaries of state could select a different design, as long as it has a pine tree with a North Star and a buff background. More states are adopting new flags to stand out from the sea of state seals with blue backgrounds. Recently, Minnesota and Utah voted on new designs. And other states, like California, have had unique designs since the early 1900s. Some people don't think we should change Maine's current state flag. They see the state seal as representing Maine's history and people. But supporters of adopting the pine tree flag also point to its history and say Maine should have a more distinctive symbol.
It's a flag that clearly represents what it's supposed to represent. People, even people who are just visiting, they want a Maine souvenir, pine tree flag. What could be better?
So if voters say yes to question 5, Bellows will present Lemire's design to the Adjutant General, and it will become the official state flag. And if voters say no, the pine tree flag won't go away. People will still fly it and wear it on hats. It just won't be official. For the Maine Flag Company founders, that's okay.
We didn't undertake this project with the intention of changing the official flag of Maine, but as a cultural symbol that people can identify with and that they feel represents Maine values, it's a perfect flag for that.
So Mainers have a choice this November in deciding what symbol best represents the state, its values and history, and the people who live here. For now, that's Maine State Flag Explained. As Maine's official public media organization, we're proud to bring free radio, television, and digital news and entertainment to Mainers every day. Support our work at mainepublic.org/donate.